Hello, and welcome to the Northern Ireland podcast. This week, I am joined by the Black Lives Matter Chairperson, Tura Arutura. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
My name is Tura. It's Mr. Tura Arutura. I came to Ireland in 1993, and I've been here now for 30 years coming. I am African, Black Irish, and I'm very proud of my heritage and background and culture, including my history and heritage.
And how has Northern Ireland been for you?
Well, the north of Ireland for me has been a place where I've been able to grow and discover myself, and a place that I became a man. It's a place where I have learned about the world. It's a place that has given me a career, a beautiful wife, some daughters, to bless me with 3 daughters, and it's given me the life that I call my life today. Ireland has given me the gift of freedom, and I first learned about this place from a book called Ireland for Beginners that I read in 1983. I learned about Ireland before I came here, just in little bits and pieces.
And what sort of made you choose Northern Ireland?
So my mother was living in England, and living in England, in the south of England, with her husband, Fred, and my young sister. And I was living in South Africa. And my aunt was living in Northern Ireland then. And I was, this is a really funny story. I was doing adverts on TV and commercials, and I wrote a letter to my mom's, to my aunts in Germany then, and I said to her, "Oh, I'm doing TV commercials and modeling and etc., etc." And the next thing it was, "We need to get him out of that country. He's doing nude modeling." I was not, but nonetheless, my mom thought, "Oh, besides, South Africa is becoming a bit violent and dangerous because Nelson Mandela had just been released, and there was a lot of uncertainty around how the transition from apartheid into an equal community society, post-apartheid, post-colonial South Africa would develop." And there was that uncertainty, and my mom, knowing me, I was at the heart of youth activities in terms of agitating and challenging the apartheid regime. So my mom thought, probably best for you to come either to Belfast or to England. So I chose Belfast.
And what are your thoughts of here in recent years? So I saw there's a piece of research from the Equality Commission that found racism was a normal part of life here. Have you any thoughts on that study?
Yes, I mean, racism has been, segregation, oppression, exclusion by identity of some sort or another, be it sectarianism or nationalism. It's a part and parcel of this country's legacy, and the Equality Commission highlighting that in 2023 is no new discovery. It's something that Equality Commission didn't even have to do a study to establish, because of the numerous reports that have been published. Really, the foundations of this country is built on prejudice and exclusion, and I often relate to this part of the country as the lab. This is the lab that the plantations were designed on, the plantations that were to be slavery plantations. This is the lab of British colonialism, right to how Hong Kong and the Caribbeans and other parts of the world were captured as part of the British Empire. So, the Equality Commission is part of the structure which continues to maintain the status quo, which ensures that racism is thriving. The Equality Commission, the Equality Commission, the Human Rights Commission, all these quangos established by the British government are there to maintain the status quo, which is the foundation of the British institutions.
Do you not think that their findings will do anything then? Do you think they're just, a say-so rather than something being done about them?
In terms of addressing inequality and injustices and the legacy of the empire, you need to take the perpetrators, the protagonists out of the conversation. How do you have somebody who has been the perpetrator of dehumanizing other people being judge, jury, and executioner? And this is a farcical situation that we have where Britain is not accounted for its acts against human life and around the world. In a way, the report highlights what we already know. If you don't know this and you need a Quality Commission report to tell you, you've been living under a stone, because there is every evidence, the reports that have been presented by many government structures tell us the system is not fit for purpose, and nothing will happen to address the racism from this report. I've been here for 30 years. I've seen the Equality Commission function. It's a toothless dog. It is not worth the paper the organization is designed upon. The structures are not fit for purpose. They're there to maintain the status quo.
What would need to change about that to make a difference?
You have a system of culture that has developed over years, and people do not understand how it came to be like that. What needs to happen really is we need to arrive to a place where we can have mutual respect for each other, and we can have a cosmic sense of our humanity overriding our selfishness. And I guess we have to arrive to a point where the majority of the people on this earth realize the importance of mutual respect and mutual camaraderie and sharing of this planet in a mutual way without oppressive dominance and dictation by people. We need to arrive to a place of mutual respect. We don't want a certain continuous type of life where we are held at ransom by one society.
And do you think the political climate has made things worse?
Well, the political climate in the north of Ireland currently, from Brexit, which was a very racialized campaign full of lies for the Brexiteers, by the Brexiteers, and then now you don't have Stormont, no political representation. And at a time when you need political representation just during COVID and post-COVID. So the political climate within Northern Ireland is quite diabolical, because you have disengagement with issues that are pertinent to our lives at the minute. And it's quite frustrating for people who require political representation, for there not to be any political representation. And so many issues have been raised as needing to be addressed, from the hospital waiting list to the housing shortages, to health, to people's health, to the impact of COVID, and the impact of racism and sectarianism. You've got a political climate where the right-wing people feel quite secure and quite confident to proliferate negativity and racist ideas that are similar to those uttered by the 1933 Nazi government. So in terms of the situation in Northern Ireland, the political situation is not favorable for Black people because you have a hostile environment, which is really a British policy. And here, without a political system that functions at Stormont, there is no way of addressing the situation that Black people find themselves in. And just everybody of color and everybody who's minority, who's being subjected to dehumanizing discrimination. There is no way of actually addressing their problems. There's no political representation. The political willpower does not exist within the political class in terms of addressing equality. The proof is in the pudding.
Do you think there's a hope that racism won't be a normal part of life in like a few years' time?
Racism is racism because prejudice of somebody's color exists and in particular to those people with power, with the means to affect people's lives, with the power to make policies and decisions. And that, in Britain, I think we're a very long way off. It's not possible to eradicate prejudices that are ingrained in a society in a very short time. We must be steadfast and we must be clear and focused.
And do you think Lillian, she's the first black councillor for the SDLP, do you think that's a step in the right direction?
Lillian, what she's achieved is a great achievement. She, being the first black politician to be elected, is a great achievement, not only for herself, but for the black community and the African community, and also to the whole sort of mixed, diverse community that live in Ireland. On substance, SDLP and Lillian will need to step up and show leadership that she indeed does represent issues that are relevant to the diverse community that she comes from. But, voting a black person into any position of power just for the sake of being a black person or person of color is not good enough. It's through the quality of somebody's contribution and somebody's ability to address issues that people should be measured by. My hope is that Lillian does continue to broaden her knowledge of the people that she serves, and I'm not sure if she's a Gael goer, but she will do wise by really getting involved with the communities that she's representing and really understanding them and speaking for them collectively. But it's a step in the right direction. We must ensure that we just don't become part of the machine that maintains the inequalities. You've got to put in place a structure that is fit for purpose, that reflects the people, and not just building on an edifice that is dysfunctional. It's the systems that we are operating under that are not fit for purpose, and that is what we must change, the systems and the relationships within the systems.
What would you change about the system?
We need to really reflect the people's voice and the people's needs. We need to be making decisions based on the people on the ground and not top down.
Northern Ireland, it's been dubbed as the race hate capital of Europe in 2006. Is there anything else that can be done to change Northern Ireland's image?
This image that Northern Ireland is the race hate capital of Europe is a lot of nonsense. It is an absolute nonsense. It's mudding up the waters and pulling a wool over people's eyes. The fact is, Northern Ireland people are amazing people. They wear their hearts on their sleeves. They are kind. They are genuine. When the rest of the UK was involved in the slave trade, people in Belfast, Presbyterians, you name them, Catholics, they were all protesting against slave ships, from preventing them from docking at Belfast Harbour. So this idea that Northern Ireland is the capital of racism in Europe, it's nonsense.
And I remember during COVID, Black Lives Matter were protesting, and you were given fines, but they were revoked, and then you were questioned by police under a law that was used to question organised crime. Now, you received an apology over the handling of these protests, but has there been anything done since to put things right?
There is a meeting that has been organised by the PSNI, and I think Officer Singleton, one of the senior officers, is going to be doing an engagement. There's been a few of these public engagements by the PSNI. There was an apology, there was distress, there was very disproportionate treatment. The day we had the protest was the 6th of June 2020, and 72 fines were issued between Derry and Belfast, and anti-terrorist laws were used to stop people from boarding buses and trains. If you're seen to be suspicious or carrying a placard supporting Black Lives Matter or speaking out about what had happened to George Floyd, you were told not to travel. You were stopped. It was a huge police operation. And what you see from that week on, the 13th of June, there was a Save Our Monuments protest, where police were fraternizing with the protesters. This is the reality, that the structures represented the class of people who they wish to oppress. The laws that were pushed on the 5th of June by Stormont in order to give the police the power to discriminate against black people. This is the legacy of the empire. This is the legacy of Jim Crow. This is the legacy of how the system oppresses people of color. So the reports that were made after that, there was numerous reports, including the police ombudsman's report, which recommended that the officer responsible for making those decisions should be reprimanded. Nobody was punished for the way that we were mistreated and the way our families were traumatized by the whole process. So we were treated like terrorists because the system treats the black body as a weapon. And this is the situation that we have, that the police is not willing to be a mutual participant in finding solutions.
This paints a really grim picture for, like, especially young black people who are going through university. What would you say to them? Is there any sort of consolation you can give them about their future?
The future is bright, and the future is your light. We have to shed light on what is happening. And the young people of this generation have that ability to, with their friends and their allies. It's not a black and white thing. It's not a race thing. It's really about those people who are vulnerable in society. And once you see that as a shared people, that this experience that the police is treating the people of color is not only towards people of color, it's towards working class people. So young people and their friends and their allies got to get organized. You've got to organize yourselves. You've got to make decisions about the type of world you want to live in. And we have to challenge the politicians. They don't have the answers, but we as the people do have the answers. So we need to come together as people with the same mindset and work towards the outcomes that we want, which is we want to end racism. We want racism to be a crime. You know, let's not muddy the waters by using vague language, which is what happens in the, you know, there's a race legislation being consulted at the minute. And you can see by the language and the terms of reference that this is the establishment trying to muddy the waters and trying to confuse the issue. And the reality is, if politicians use inflammatory language that causes people to be racially profiled and racially discriminated, they should be convicted. We need to hold politicians to account.
And what would you say to the political leaders of Northern Ireland?
There needs to be much more nuanced conversations around how do we govern ourselves. And it's nothing to do with England, it's nothing to do with Dublin, but it is to do with the people in this island, on this side of the island. How do we govern ourselves? Those conversations need to happen now, because the situation that we find ourselves in is unfathomable, it is unworkable, and cannot be allowed to just go on in perpetuity.
What's next for Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter is evolving. We're a non-political organization. We're not linked to any political movement that is political parties in this country. What we want to do is to bring the political class to a way of thinking that we can treat each other with respect, and we can treat each other in ways that promote equality and justice for everybody. We've got a situation where the legacy of slavery and colonialism has had an impact on our communities, and we need to address the fallout and the trauma that has been caused by those experiences without rubbishing or belittling anybody's experiences. So we need to work together. We need to actually call out. We need to say we will not celebrate people who benefited from enslaving others, and we will appropriate the monies that it was benefited from slavery to the people who were impacted by the slavery. So we need to really critical conversations with each other around how do we address the pains that have been caused in the past.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for coming on to this episode and chatting with me. Till next time, stay tuned and we'll talk later.